Hello YouTube, this is Cody the Coin Raptor coming at you with another Bitcoin video. So Bitcoin over the last couple of days has been extremely volatile. We have the chart up here right now, and you can see that after our run up to almost 70K, it went up to about 69 or so earlier in the week, it actually had this really strong red candle right here. Now this red candle, judging by the size of the wick here to the downside, actually went all the way down as far as about $60,000 or so, and then bounced off of that level and came back up again and ended the day at about $64,000. Now, what's interesting about this is it kind of shows a new sort of norm for Bitcoin, which is that any and all dips have been bought, okay? As soon as it came down, even in the realm of $60,000, we saw buyers step in and push the price all the way back up to 64K. And we've seen that buying momentum continue to carry Bitcoin even higher and higher and higher, and to the point where this resistance level here at about almost, we'll call it about 70 or so, I'll move this up here a little bit, is pretty much the last level of resistance before we hit new all-time highs for Bitcoin. And this kind of is completely uncharted territory because Bitcoin has never been this high before, okay? It actually surpassed the previous all-time highs, and now we're looking at a future where Bitcoin could be regularly above 70K. I do believe that's a possibility, but for now, that 70K region is kind of gatekeeping us from the next region. And so that's where our strong resistance point is right now. So I want to go ahead and put this into the proper context because Bitcoin has been just all over the place lately, but it's mostly been up here. And if we take a look at our Bitcoin Fear and Greed Index, we can actually see that we're actually in the middle of about 86, or extreme greed. And if we compare this to the all-time chart here, we can actually see that Bitcoin has rarely been above 86 in the extreme greed category, except for here in about February of 2021, in which all went all the way up to about 92 or so. That was close to the top for that bull market. So it is entirely possible we'll actually see this climb into the 90s before we wind up actually seeing some sort of a topping action. So just to kind of put this in a perspective of our previous bull runs, we are well basically on track with other bull runs in both strength and scope of the moves up. Now, I also want to go ahead and take a look at the liquidations as well. So today, the last 24 hours, we've actually had a large number of long liquidations and a large number of short liquidations as well, both hovering at about $46 million worth of long liquidations and about $58 million worth of short liquidations. And if we go ahead and compare this to our heat map, we can see here that most of the liquidity is actually kind of sitting here at just above 70,000. It's about 70,600. That's where the shorts right now are defending. They are very closely defending that 70,600 level. And if we do get a pop above that level, we are most likely going to wind up seeing Bitcoin move even higher. Now, during this time in which Bitcoin went up and basically kissed $70,000, we had yet another Coinbase outage. So this has been getting users kind of upset about what's been going on with Coinbase, especially if you have money on Coinbase. And let me start off by saying that if you have your coins on an exchange, it's always a good idea to get them off of the exchange. That way your coins aren't controlled by a centralized exchange. But users have basically been reporting that Coinbase has had another glitch. Some people even saying that this is intentional, that Coinbase is preventing users from actually going and selling their Bitcoin near an all-time high. Now, I don't know if that's the case or not. Personally, I would more or less just chalk this up to incompetence and record volume going on at Coinbase. There's a lot of people who are rushing to sell Bitcoin right now or near the top, and so that kind of shows us that Bitcoin, that Coinbase currently is just not able to handle these massive levels of volume, this massive trading action that's going on with Bitcoin near all-time highs. And that's also why I recommend for users to look at other exchanges as well and not just Coinbase, okay? Now, one of the major groups that we've seen actually sell a large amount of their Bitcoin is the miner class. So the miners have been selling Bitcoin like there's no tomorrow. You can see here I have the 1-year chart for the miners reserve, the number of Bitcoin held in miners wallets, and we can see here that they've been selling like crazy. And just over the last year, in fact, if you go and take a look at the all-time high, the last time the miners had this little of Bitcoin in their wallets was about back in June of 2021, and even before that, maybe around May or April of 2021. So miners have been selling, and if you're wondering who's actually been selling a lot of these tops, it's actually, believe it or not, it's the miners. And the reason for that is because the upcoming halving is going to make it much more difficult for them to remain profitable. They have to have the most efficient, up-to-date ASICs in order to mine Bitcoin. So they're selling Bitcoin ahead of the halving that's going to be happening next month in order to try and pay the bills. Now, on the other hand, if we take a look at the Bitcoin hash rate, we can see that the hash rate is still actually fairly high. So what this means is that miners have been selling their Bitcoin, but they're still at or above where they have been for pretty much the whole year when it comes to the hash rate. So miners right now are going to be in a world of hurt as soon as the halving happens and they get their Bitcoin, their block rewards get halved. As soon as that happens, they're going to have to bring on more. They're going to have to bring more machines, more ASICs online in order to try and achieve the same level of revenue that they would have had prior to the halving. So I do expect that the hash rate is going to continue to climb higher. All right. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is the Bitcoin spot ETF flow, okay? And specifically, what has been going on with these spot ETFs. So we're here over at Apollo, a Bitcoin ETF, and you can see here that Grayscale holds 400,000 Bitcoin currently, and they hold basically just about half of the total Bitcoin held by these ETFs. And it's honestly, it's not too hard of a thing to suggest that eventually these Bitcoin spot ETFs will hold, I think, at least 1 million Bitcoin. Right now they're sitting at about 796,000 Bitcoin, and I think give it a couple of months, we're going to wind up seeing them hold 1 million Bitcoin. If you think about that, it's kind of wild because there's only ever going to be 21 million Bitcoin, so they'd be holding a significant percentage of the total Bitcoin supply. Now, we've had Grayscale, 400,000, BlackRock, 191,000 Bitcoin, Fidelity, 122,000 Bitcoin. And if we go down here to the net Bitcoin ETF flows, okay, this is really important because net means the number of inflows and the outflows put together, okay, the inflows and the outflows put together will show us either a positive or negative value. So that means that we're going to have either total net inflows or total outflows. And so far, what we've seen so far is that we've actually had a significant number of ETF inflows into those spot ETFs. So we have a total right now of about 177,000 Bitcoin brought into these ETFs since their inception. 177,000. Okay, so that's just wild. And especially over the past couple of days, we've actually seen a very large amount of Bitcoin flowing into these exchanges. In some cases, 8.7 thousand and 10,000 Bitcoin on the 5th of March. Okay, so 10,000 Bitcoin in a single day being gobbled up by these spot ETFs. Okay, it's just an absolutely wild time to be in the Bitcoin space. Now, put another way, you can also go ahead and check CoinGlass. CoinGlass has the data on ETFs as well. You just go to the ETFs tab here, select that, and you can see the total inflows and outflows. And you can especially see the change overall in the actual number of Bitcoin held per exchange. And so over the last day, you've seen a large increase in the number of Bitcoin owned by Fidelity. It's over 6% in a single day and about 18% over the last 7 days. That kind of ties what we've seen here with IBIT, and that's the the one held by BlackRock, sponsored by BlackRock. And so that's up about 18%. So they've added 18% of their holdings in the last 7 days, and Fidelity has added about 18% as well. Now, that being said, there also is a significant exodus from Grayscale. Grayscale has lost 6.62% of Bitcoin in the last week because people are pulling their money out of GBTC because of the higher fees and instead buying IBIT and FBTC because their fees are much, much lower. And I also want to go ahead and direct your attention to this Bitcoin address. This is the number 3 largest Bitcoin address. This has been linked to Robinhood's, to basically to the exchange Robinhood. And so what we've seen so far is in the past couple of days, especially on the 4th, we've seen large Bitcoin inflows into Robinhood. So you have here 700 on one transaction, 1,400 on another transaction, and another 700 Bitcoin on another transaction. This all happened during the same day on the 4th of March. And I think that what that kind of shows us is that there's increased demand for Bitcoin coming from Robinhood, maybe even because of the retail crowd actually going in and FOMOing towards the top of the current Bitcoin price, or just saying, hey, listen, I want Bitcoin. It doesn't matter what price, just give me the Bitcoin. And as a result, we've seen this wallet that is related to Robinhood continue to move even higher. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is the Bitcoin options. Okay, Bitcoin options market. We go over here to Deribit, their metrics, and taking a look at our Bitcoin options, we can see here that there is a large amount of Bitcoin options that are going to be due, that are going to be expiring on the 29th of March, mostly calls, but also a significant number of puts. We have about $4.6 billion worth of Bitcoin calls and about $3.4 billion worth of Bitcoin puts. Now, if we go ahead and take a look at our calls, we can see here that most of these calls are at about $65,000 or so, with some of them coming in at about $60,000. So what this tells us is that coming into the month, many of these Bitcoin options traders are expecting that Bitcoin will at least stay at or around $65,000, and some even saying it's going to stay above $60,000. I don't think that's too far-fetched personally, but it's always good to know what the traders are doing and how they're kind of positioning themselves, so that way you can increase your own knowledge and your own awareness, even if you're just a long-term holder like myself. So speaking of myself, I have not actually sold any Bitcoin yet. I'm still waiting. I'd like to definitely see us push well into 70K. And then after that, I may consider actually selling a small part, or maybe DCAing out a very small part of my Bitcoin holdings. The last thing I want to talk about is what's going on with the dollar index as well. So the dollar index, the strength of the dollar, has been declining, and it's been declining pretty strongly. We saw here that we have resistance at 104, and it has gone all the way down to the current support level at 102, and I do expect that it's going to come down here and touch 100 before too long. The reason why I like to talk about the dollar index is because it trades inversely to the Bitcoin. So Bitcoin does not like a strong dollar. Bitcoin loves a weak dollar. And right now, the dollar strength is weakening, okay? It went all the way up from 107 down to where it is right now at 102. But anyways, that's all I've got for you guys today. Let me know what you guys think about this and the massive Bitcoin inflows, that we've seen to the Bitcoin spot ETFs, as well as our crazy amount of liquidations, and whether or not you actually use Coinbase. I'm very curious to hear about this. Is this enough to consider switching to another exchange because Coinbase keeps having these outages? Leave a comment below, and I will catch you guys in the next video.